Yeah, I
So,
think that's it.
well, it's great to meet you. I love your work. I love what you're doing. And before we get into that, I want to know 4 years ago, we were trying to wrap our heads around this pandemic, all the ramifications. So, how did you make it through that time period and how did it change you?
Well, I kind of had a little bit of forewarning about it, although I didn't know that it was about the pandemic. But I knew that there were big, huge changes coming on from a conversation that I'd had with my spirit guides, a couple of conversations I'd had back in the fall, probably about October of 2019. So, and plus I had sort of ongoing guidance. So I didn't experience most of what everybody else experienced in terms of fear and trepidation and resentment and resistance and all this stuff. But I also say that I was very lucky that I ended up here in the mountains because that was kind of how the whole area handled it. We really just didn't. Our local businesses were closed for about 6 weeks, and then we went right back to business. Didn't really have any problem with it, and so it's not really maybe a fair assessment. But I mean, the pandemic did take out my sister. My brother-in-law ended up shooting and killing my sister, and as a direct result of so much of the stress and pressure that they were under because of the lockdowns and all this stuff. So it's not like it didn't touch me,
Right.
but I really I didn't have the same experience that most people did. I really kind of a lot of peace and a lot of understanding and really perception of opportunity for all of us to change. The most important part of change is deciding what you want. And when you know what you want and it calls to you, then you can see very clearly the steps and you can just kind of sidestep anything that doesn't fit that desire or that image. As I gather an image for myself, this is what I want. I can just go there, and that to me was what the pandemic was all about. Was really reminding everybody, and some people are still, I think, unclosing this, unfolding it, unpacking it. But we really do create our own destiny, our own world, our own environment, our own experience. And what better way to really get clear on that than to have the whole world kind of go crazy? So that's
Yeah.
my take on the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah. Good way. That's a good way of putting it. So, I want to get to exactly what you do on a daily basis. So, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do
I
you
help
answer?
people get happy.
Okay. So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Happy.
Okay. There you
I
go.
wanted to be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how did you get to this point? Take me back to your childhood, where you were born and raised, and how you got kind of this level of clairvoyance and this desire to coach and to help people get to that happy place. How did that happen?
Well, that didn't start early. I mean, that didn't start until I was 55. Actually, I had a huge spiritual awakening. My life partner just passed away. She died in my arms after 24 glorious years. And, I like to say that I felt like my only source of unconditional love had just left the planet.
Wow.
Like I was bereft, I was lost. I was planning on following her. Actually, I was going to type a couple of loose ends and then follow her. I didn't tell anybody that. It wasn't like a call for help or anything like that. I would need help. I just knew exactly what I was doing. And so fate intervened and the phone rang the day that I was, probably going to do it. I was kind of composing the suicide note. And it was her best friend, Lordella. And Lordella said, "Oh, I just heard about Betty. I'm so sorry." We started talking. And she said, "Wait a minute, you got to stop thinking like that." I don't know what I was saying. I was crying, and I don't remember exactly what I was talking about other than these rings that I was so upset about that we had lost. But anyway, so I said, "Yeah, I agree. I don't know how to stop how I'm thinking. I'm 55 years old. I've been trying to learn how to control my thoughts my whole life. I've been through probably 20 years of therapy and probably another 20 years or concurrent 20 years of 12-step meetings, and I had been to friends meetings and a lot of Christian meetings. I was a classical trumpet player, so I played a lot of Christmas and other kinds of Christian gigs, and I had been searching and I didn't know. I just felt like there was just no way. So she started to teach me, and she was the only person on the planet I think I would have listened to that day, just because of what I knew about her more immediate history with her husband and stuff. So that was my turning point. Up until
Wow.
then, I would say I had no spiritual paradigm whatsoever,
Wow.
none.
But
Other than nature. Nature was my spiritual paradigm.
but there had to be levels of seeds that were planted in you because you aren't just doing something that's making money. You're doing something where
No.
you're giving a lot of yourself
Yeah, well,
and
it saved my life.
right. Yeah.
This information literally saved my life. I
Yeah.
knew that I had to find something if I was going to live. I didn't particularly care at the beginning of the conversation with Lordella whether I lived or not. In fact, I was intent on not living. By the end of the conversation, I felt a spark of hope. And
Yeah.
this is what I like to share with people. There's always hope. And this is not to say that you shouldn't do something or should do something. I'm just saying there's always hope.
Yeah.
And when I found that little spark of hope, I gave myself a month. I very clearly sat down with myself. I said, okay, this thing looks promising. And she sent me a bunch of CDs. She told me some books to get. I started listening online and it all resonated. It all, but I was just completely snowed under with grief, just way dramatic. Like I can't even tell you how dramatic I was being about the whole thing. So I gave myself 1 month. I said, okay, I'm going to try this for 1 month. If it doesn't pan out the way I think it could or the way I need for it to, I'm out of here. And at the end of the 1 month, I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. I still didn't know if it was a train. You know, that old joke, you see the light at the end, you don't know if it's a
Yeah.
train. So I could see the light and I didn't know what it was. I said, okay, I'm going to give this 1 year. I can see that this has a lot of potential. I'm going to really explore this for a year. And I did. I jumped in with both feet. I studied probably 6 or 8 hours a day. I practiced it. I taught it. I started going to Abraham Hicks workshops is where I started. The books that she had sent me and everything. And they became my teachers. But here's why I do what I do. It's got nothing to do with money. It's got to do with the fact that when I was at that place in my life, as a classical trumpet player, that was my first career. Whenever I didn't know how to do something, I'd find somebody that knew how to do it and I'd go and I'd pay them money and I would take a private lesson. I'd fly to wherever they were, Chicago, New York, wherever it was, and take a private lesson or 2 or 3 until I could do whatever it was. And so that was my paradigm about learning a new skill or acquiring anything that I wanted was, you go after it and you get it. You find somebody who does it and you get them to mentor you or show you how to do it or teach you or, take you on as a business partner or whatever it is. So there I was wanting to know all this stuff. And Lordella, bless her heart, she's just a layperson. She doesn't do this for a living. I was like, Lordella, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And she was like, and she was very gracious and everything, but I wanted to study. I wanted to study. Well, there was no place to study. It was all fractured. There was no like one place that I could go. Esther Hicks didn't take private clients, private students, whatever you might call it. She didn't have like a little ongoing small group, at least not that I could find. And believe me, I wrote to her. I tried to find some way to study, and there wasn't anything available for any amount of money that I could find at the time. And so I did it. I mean, I had friends. I made lots of friends. I went to probably 40 Abraham Hicks workshops. I made a ton of really great friends, and we would talk. And I started doing rampages every morning with people that I had met. And I mean, I did it, but nobody should have to do it alone.
Right.
You don't have to do it alone. The leverage is in not doing it alone. And I'm all about leverage. I'm a real estate investor. I love the concept of leverage. I kind of preach leverage to people who are like, leverage, that sounds like, either physics or finance. And that's not what we're doing here. No, spiritual leverage. And when you are leveraging your spiritual training or spiritual expansion, whatever you want to call it, you can get places very quickly compared to without support, my group meets twice a week. Minimum twice a week is how often we humans need to do something in order to really get momentum going with it. You can't think about something once a week or once a month and really get momentum going with it unless you're doing a lot of it on your own. And I'm not saying that people can't. I did, but I'm just saying for those who want a faster, you can cut your trail down from 10 years down to 10 months, seriously. And that's why I do what I do, because I really believe that if somebody has a hunger as big as mine was and still is, that I want to be there for them. That you don't have to do it alone, even if that's just, read my book. I put out a book a couple months ago, From Lonely to Fearless. Just read the book, as it's full of information. You could do it all by yourself. I'm just saying, if you don't want to, I'm here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So on that phone call, did she know that you were thinking about leaving the planet? No
No,
idea.
I never told anybody. I didn't tell anybody until after the 2 years was up. At the end of the 1 year, I said, I think I got this, but I'm going to give myself 2 years just in case.
Okay.
And so at the end of that second year, I was fine. I was on my way. I was starting to really be able to practice it. And I still had a huge way to go. I mean, that was 2 years into a 10-year journey, and I still have a huge way to go. But I had come far enough. And so it was only after that, I mentioned it to my sister once. she would have been absolutely devastated if that had happened. And so I didn't tell her until I was sure that I wasn't, because by then I was much more aware of how it would have impacted on somebody else. At the time, I had no thought whatsoever about how it was going to impact on anybody else. It was just like a done deal. It was just like a knowing, like this is the next step, and just don't tell anybody because they won't understand.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. Who's
yeah.
been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration for you in your life consistently?
Consistently, well, Betty, my late partner, she was a
Yeah.
huge inspiration for me. 24 years of just absolute inspiration. Before that, my dad,
Yeah.
my earliest, my sister Katrine, who's still alive. The other one, Brenda, also, but not quite as much as Katrine. Katrine was the oldest. She kind of helped raise the kids, when my mom wasn't always available. And I've had some really great teachers. Stephen Burns, my trumpet teacher, I only studied with him one summer, basically, and he changed my life completely. He gave me a book called Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior. And that might have been one of my first little planted seeds, like you were talking about, the planted seeds of spirituality that didn't in any observable way take root, but they were growing, deep underground.
Yeah.
And Adi Kari was a spiritual guide of mine. She started off as a therapist and ended up kind of as my spiritual guru. She was huge, but consistently, yeah, my dad and Betty and my sister Katrine, and well, just so many people I've met. Well, and Esther Hicks.
Yeah.
Just for 10 years, because I didn't know about her before that, but huge. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
I've always gotten tongue tied whenever I'm around her. A lot of workshops you run into people, but just seeing her in the hall, I just say, "Hi, Esther." That's all I could say. I feel like a little, like a little fan.
Oh yeah. I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
So you've gone through a lot. You've overcome a lot. I mean, that when
sure.
you get to that point where you're thinking about leaving the planet and then you elevate yourself to helping others get to a better place, what is it that gets you out of bed every day that helps you do this work and evolve as a human being yourself? What is that collective gas in your tank?
Love. I discovered love. I thought love came from people, and I had found one that had tons of love to give me, and therefore was able to receive a lot of tons of love back. But then when she was gone, I felt like all love was gone.
Yeah.
And that's the despondency, that's the hopelessness, that's the lostness. And so when I discovered that love is everywhere and free and always, that just exploded my life. Once I really got it, there was no looking back. There is no looking back. And that's what I want everybody to know, is the whole world is made of love. All this divisiveness that you see going on, and I don't pay much attention to it. I can't even speak eloquently to it at all, but it's obviously, out of alignment, and it's out of love. But love never disappears. We just pinch off the perception of it. It's like the sun is always shining, but sometimes, we're on the wrong side of the earth to see it, or we have a parasol up, or we have the, blackout shades up. We can't see it, but the sun keeps shining. It doesn't have anything to do with us.
Yeah.
And that's what love is. And we are all made of love.
Yeah.
And if anybody's upset about anything, they're just not aware of their own makeup of love. They're not receiving, they're not perceiving the love in that moment. And so one of the things that I do it's everything that I do, but one of the things that I think is so important about what, people who come into my group experience this unconditional love, not from me, Ramona the human, but from my spirit guides, coming in from source or infinite intelligence, Mother Earth, whatever you want to call it, that love that's all around us, that we're made of, that, the starlight is made of, that force comes coming through me to everybody in the meeting. And it's palpable. People cry, it's you can feel it.
Yeah.
When you can feel love, you don't doubt it anymore.
Yeah.
We walk around in our lives not feeling it, and so of course we doubt it. But when you can feel it on a regular basis, you can start to remember it. You don't have to go find it. You don't have to create it. All you have to do is let it back in again. And it's like an old friend. It's like a part of you come home. So love, that's my answer.
That's so well said. So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you. You can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this magnanimous leap you've made in life and where you are. What advice would you impart on that young version of you?
Do whatever it takes to feel good. Stop sacrificing, stop earning, stop proving, Stop striving and do whatever it takes to feel good. And as soon as she says, well, but that's, that's not right, because then I'll just end up, eating too much or drinking too much, or gambling, or, whatever, I would say, okay, next thing is learn to discern what actually feels good.
Yeah.
Actually feels good. That's the advice I've given. Do what it actually takes to actually feel good, and everything else takes care of itself. Because when you're feeling good, you are in love. You're in love with life. You're in love with yourself. You're in love with everybody. You will do no harm. When you're living in love, you do no harm. That's what you want.
Yeah.
You want to do no harm.
Yeah.
That's like the basics.
Yeah, for sure. So, of all of these things that you've done in your life and evolved into at this point, what are you the proudest of?
What am I the proudest of? It's a great question. What am I the most proud of? I'm proud of, even as a very young person, even as a person who was very out of alignment in a lot of ways, didn't really like herself or trust herself, or certainly not love herself. She didn't trust many other people, but yet she stuck to her guns and did what she thought was right. So she became a musician when everybody said, "You're not going to be able to make a living being a classical trumpet player. Are you kidding me?" And she stayed true to who she was as a person. When I discovered I was gay, I never looked back. I never did through this whole, pretending or in the closet or anything. I've always been true to myself, whatever myself was, as flawed as that was, and I'm proud of that.
It's funny when we started this interview and you mentioned Georgia, I just watched the documentary on the Indigo Girls. I've always really enjoyed them. And
Hmm.
they're from Atlanta, and I didn't realize it. And it
Okay.
was fascinating to hear their take on how all of the awareness kind of unfolded. They were on an Ellen show when she came out, and how just the whole thing was fascinating, how they kind of charted their lives and how everybody thought they were together, but they weren't, but they were friends. It's interesting just how much we have to fight for just basic civility on this planet when it should just be a right. Like you said, unconditional love. It should just be a part of our rites of passage as being human beings and spiritual beings on this planet. So it's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, when we hold on to that inside ourselves, then our outside world matches.
Yeah,
So, if your outside world isn't being kind, isn't being fair, isn't being just, then the answer is inside. The whole, that famous quote, be the change you want to see.
yeah,
That's not just an activist quote. That is an everything quote. That's a vibrational essence, right? If I want more love, I need to be more love,
yeah,
which means I need to receive. I don't need to create it. I don't need to manufacture it or find it. I just need to let it in. When I let it in, then I can let it out. When I let it out, the world matches me.
yeah,
So if I want more justice, if I want, less violence, if I want whatever it is that I want, less hunger, then I become that thing. And then my world starts to match that. And the more that my world matches it, the more I have to share with, in other words, the more it ripples out. It's not
yeah,
that I'm going to go into some place that doesn't have it and try to force it on them. It's just that I be it and I become it and I become it, I become it, and
yeah,
there's more and more and more of it, and then more and more people can feel it. Because when a human role models something, it's very different from source being it already. We need human role models to show us kind of how it can work.
yeah.
So yeah, that's, if everybody could just be the role model, then we'd be great.
Yeah, we would be great. I
Yeah.
agree. So at the end of the day, Ramona, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone you know, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, I think I'm love.
Yeah,
I think I'm love. I don't ever try to hurt anybody. And that I think if you scratch the surface deep enough, that's what you'll find in everybody, even the worst behavior of us, even
yeah,
Adolf Hitler or somebody, like the worst criminal or whatever. You find people that are just trying to scrabble back to where they know they could be, which is love.
yeah,
If you get really, really far down, we in my industry we refer to a kind of a hierarchy of emotions. So a low vibration emotion would be like shame or guilt, and a medium low is anger, and then you get up into the higher, eventually joy and ecstasy and all that. And so if you can figure out what you're feeling, you can see where you are on the scale, then it's just a matter of climbing that scale. And if I am really, 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 really out of sorts, I might be doing serial killing or raping or some horrible thing, right? I'm just trying to feel better. And if I can just keep moving up through that and keep trying to feel better after that, in other words, not get stuck in any unwanted behavior, unwanted state, if I can just keep moving up a little bit at a time, which is why I think it's so essential for us to teach this skill. The control of your focus is how you control where you are on the vibrational scale. And if we just taught everybody from day one how to control their focus, we wouldn't have, the vast majority. I mean, our troubles would be much lighter, much thinner than they are now. So controlling the focus is everything. And I know that we can all do it. We
Yeah.
all have this basis of love, and we're just searching for it. We just can't remember where we put it,
Yep.
kind
That's
of a thing.
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So if anyone wants to get your book, they want to hire you, reach out, any of the good business, where can they go?
Okay, so on Amazon, From Lonely to Fearless. It's the only one with that title. So in fact, you just put in From Lonely, it comes right up. I'm really tickled about that. I didn't plan that
Yeah.
because there are so many books with the same names. But
Yeah.
yeah, so From Lonely to Fearless on Amazon, RamonaGaley.com. In fact, I have a free gift for your audience.
Okay.
RamonaGaley.com/private-podcast. I have a private podcast, not published anywhere. It's different people, guest hosts coming in and asking me questions, and I answer on one topic per episode. So it's really easy to search and find the topic that you're interested in. I've got a growing library, and it's a free gift for your audience members.
I love
the only
it.
place they'll find it. They won't find that on my website. You got to
Okay.
remember that link, or maybe you could put it in your comments or
I will.
something. It's the only way to find it.
I will put it in the show notes. Ramona, what a wonderful story of strength and resilience and just getting out there and spreading the light. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. I've really enjoyed this very much. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you. Best of luck with
Okay.
everything.